Hi, my name's Kelly Marshall, and I'm course leader MA Screenwriting. So nice to meet you all. And I know you can see me, but I can't see you. So we have an opportunity at the end. You may have lots of questions, and at the end, we'll be taking those questions. You can type them into the chat. But I'm going to be talking a little bit about the course today, and hopefully I will cover everything that you're wondering about, and I can answer everything that you want to know about the course. So, okay, so let's get started. So, it's not working. 1 second. Oh, hi. So that's me, but you can see me. So, okay, so first of all, so why study with us here at LCC, part of the University of the Arts? We have a very rich history, and we are a major sort of player in the development of the creative industries within the UK. We're very well known. There's kudos of the course, the standard of the course, the quality of the course, and the students that leave the course. Not just our course, all courses. We're very industry focused. We try to mirror the industry as closely as we possibly can. We have a screen school, a media school, and a design school within LCC. And we are located in a very vibrant and diverse part of London, with excellent transport links to central London and many other areas in the country, and cultural institutions as well. You can get about very easily from where we are. So there are 6 colleges within UAL, and LCC is part of that, London College of Communication. We have a diverse body of students, approximately 18,000 students across the 6 colleges, and our students come from approximately 130 countries around the world. So there's a real nice, diverse body of students there. We're ranked number 2 in the world of arts and design education, which is great, and we've been there for a while now, which is great to see. We have renowned designers, artists, filmmakers, publishers, screenwriters. They've all studied with us here, and they come back as guest speakers as well. So we keep the cycle moving. What they learn, they go out into the industry and they come back and share. So it's working really well. So we, MA Screenwriting, are part of the Screen School, and we have you have a great opportunity to interact with those other courses. We do some collaborations with some of those other courses, but you're in the building and you've got access to all of those students in the different fields that may be of interest to you to collaborate with. Our courses include film, television, animation, games art and design, sound arts, virtual reality, visual effects. So we've got all areas covered. So a little bit more about MA Screenwriting. As I mentioned, we are an industry-focused course. We aim and we focus on mirroring the industry as closely as we possibly can. It's really important that we do that, because often when students leave courses and they go into the industry, they don't know what's next, really. They don't know how to behave or what's expected of them, etc. So by mirroring the industry, it will literally feel like another day in college. You'll know exactly what to expect from those early days of breaking into the industry. So besides developing writers in film, radio, and television, we are also developing script readers, script editors, and many of our students go on to go on the other side of the table, as it were, and become development execs and creative producers. And we have a number of our students who are actually head of development in quite a few companies. So it's our focus is the film, the television, and radio. So we will be covering sort of all aspects of that within the course. So, pardon me. So our course is, I believe, the longest running course in the country. There were actually 2 courses that were set up way back when in 1992. 2 courses very, very close together. We were one of them, but the other course doesn't exist anymore. So by default, we are the longest running course in the country. And obviously, the history of what our students are out there doing brings a great interaction between us and the industry. We're very well known, and as are our writers that lead the course. So who studies MA Screenwriting? So basically we have students from every walk of life, different age ranges from early 20s to 60s. Our oldest student was actually in their early 80s, quite a few years ago, who was a pharmacist, and he used to get the red eye down from, I think it was Manchester, every week. And if there's no age limit to writing. You can be young, you can be old, and everywhere in between. It's not an ageist community, which is great, and it's really nice to have people from every walk of life, all different backgrounds, all different beliefs and cultures, because you're going to share those with each other, and that's a major part of the success of the course. You are a cross-section of an audience, and it's really nice to be able to engage with people who may know more about what you're writing about than you do yourself, and they can share their life experience with you. So the course provides you with opportunities to develop your abilities, your knowledge and your skills in all areas of screenwriting. And as we go through the course, we just keep adding to that knowledge as you start to work from smaller projects through to sort of the bigger projects. So you start on a 10-minute short, which we'll talk about in a second, and you go into sort of bigger projects as we go through, and you'll be everything you've learned, you'll be adding to those projects. So you'll be introduced, as I just mentioned, foundations of contemporary script writing, and you'll be learning that in a theoretical context, but it's a very practical heavy course. You will be writing your own work, you'll be developing your own work, but you'll also be engaging with the development of your peers' work. And really that's where all the learning happens. Everything you're learning in theory, you're putting into practice, and that speeds up your learning curve tenfold. So that's really important. And you'll learn sort of research methodologies, how to add layers and texture to your project by really researching the world that you want to write about. And more importantly, finding your own voice. It's really important to find your own voice. And as you can see on the left, Hannah, one of our students from a couple of years ago, she went on to win the Peter Ustinov Television Scriptwriting Award, and she's actually the second of our students that have won that award, which is attached to the Emmys, and is obviously a very sought after and well-established body, and our students have done very well, not only in that award, but obviously in lots of other awards. Okay, so a quick overview of the course. So here is an example of the layout of the course. So you will be writing a short, which is a 10-minute short, 10 pages. Now everyone that's joined the course has written a short, and many have written much more beside that. So some are fairly new and others can be quite established, and that's completely fine. Everyone's coming to the course because they want to learn something, and obviously we can engage wherever you are on your development, your place of development at the moment. So that's the first term, and that's the term really where everyone settles in. Everyone gets used to each other, gets used to the correct terminologies, gets used to giving feedback, receiving feedback. Everyone gets to the same place on the page, as it were. Now, you also start your major project right from the get-go. But really, those early days of the course are more about thinking about ideas, testing those ideas, challenging those ideas. Are they original enough? Do they fit? Have they got the potential for what you're considering? So if you're thinking you want to write a 12-part TV series, have you got the length of narrative there to do that? Has it got enough body to go over 12 episodes? Is it just, it could be a 6-parter, or maybe there's only enough material there for 2 episodes. So it's questioning everything. Have I seen it before? If I have, what have I seen before? Can I change things, etc., etc. So we're challenging ideas right from the get-go, because you want to be writing the most original project that you possibly can to get yourself noticed when you leave the course. And the major project obviously runs the complete length of the course, and you submit that at the end of the course in week 44. So after term 1, you'll be sort of kicking in to the course big time, and things start to load up. So you will be writing a project, a 30-minute project, to an existing format, and that is where you can either opt to do an episode of a long-running TV show. At the moment, we're this year offering Emmerdale and Doctors, and we may very well be offering those ones again next year. And there's also the opportunity, if that's not something you're into, to do adaptation from a short story for either film, radio, or television. Now, that term is a very important term, because, as I'm sure you're aware, a great percentage of what we consume on a daily basis has been adapted from another medium, whether it's a book or a stage play, or it was a film, now it's TV, it was TV, now it's film, it was a short story, etc., etc. And even if you want to be a jobbing writer, and by that I mean you want to work on the long-running TV series, you want to work on the soaps, you're not really you don't really want to work on your own original work, you just want to be working in the industry. So even if you're working on those long-running TV shows, you are working to somebody else's style, tone, voice, characters, etc., etc. So being able to pick up somebody else's project and be able to work with that is really important. The collaborative unit starts in term 2. And that is where you collaborate with other courses, which I will talk about in a moment, or you also have the opportunity to collaborate outside. Not very many people end up doing that, because the opportunities that we give with the collaboration in-house obviously is of great interest, and I can only think of one person actually that's ever done an outside collaboration, and that was because they were already sort of involved in that, so it made more sense for them to not take on too much and to stay with and make reference to the collaboration that they were currently involved in. So again, I'll give you more details of that in a second when we move through the slideshow. So then we have an industry interaction, and that is exactly what it says. It's about interacting with the industry, and as a new writer, often the industry can seem like a really big sort of scary place, and producers aren't friendly, and they don't want you knocking on their door, which really couldn't be further from the truth, because they need you, they need your projects, because otherwise they don't have work, they don't have a career. So within this unit, there are 4 options that you can go out and connect, and that could be that you decide you want to be part of the Master Club group, and the Master Club go out and invite high-end industry personnel to an industry event, and that industry event is of an evening. It's open to current students and alumni, and it's an evening of casual chats with industry guests on a sort of a round robin situation, moving from table to table, getting more information, more insight into how the industry works, meeting those people sort of one-to-one, well, not one-to-one, but face-to-face in a really casual environment. There's drink, there's nibbles, and it's a really enjoyable evening. So that's Master Club. After that, you could decide you want to be part of Screenworks, and we have an online screenwriting magazine. And within that, you'd be expected to go out and meet industry personnel and interview them, and then write up an article for the screenwriting magazine. I always call this unit the selfish unit, because you really have the opportunity to go out and meet whoever it is that you want to meet. So if, for example, you know that your major project is in the world of, say, romantic comedy, you may have a company in mind that you want to hit as soon as you leave the course. So you might decide you want to invite one of those to interview or to the industry event or etc. Or you might want to hone your comedy writing skills, in which case you might decide to make contact with a comedy writer or a horror writer. Or you might want to be a script editor, so you might decide you want to interview somebody within script development. So it's whoever you want to meet that will benefit you personally is the person that you go and knock on their door. So that's the ScreenWorks. Then there is the Masters, and it's very similar to ScreenWorks, but instead of writing up an article, you will record the interview, and that could be either video or audio recording, and sort of, so it's like a little bit of a blog, as it were. Again, you're hitting people that will benefit you personally. You may want to do the fourth choice, which is database, and a team of the cohort will put together a database. Databases are very important for your own personal growth as a writer. You need to keep records of who you've met, when you met them, how you met them, have you shown them your work, what did they see, what was their reaction to it, because it's a very small industry, and one element, it feels like a really big industry, but actually it's a very small industry and people move around a lot. So it's really important to know who's seen your work, what company they worked for, and have they now moved across, because if you send it to them and it's the same person but now in another company, you don't want them to think, oh, I saw this 4 years ago. You know, they clearly haven't written anything, because you haven't done your homework and followed that person to know that they've seen that work before. So the database will include production companies in radio, film, television, stage, gaming, animation, anything you can think of. It could be agents, it could be script writing competitions, script writing funding opportunities, anything that will benefit you as a writer. And then the database is put together, and then everyone gets a copy of that when they leave the course, and that's the startings of their own personal database that obviously they can add to once their own career starts. So going back to the major project, the major project is a unit and it is marked, but alongside the major project, we also offer the opportunity to do a minor project. If you decide to major in film, your minor would be in television, and vice versa. If you decide to major in TV, your minor would be in film. Now, the reason that we get you to do both is because it gives you obviously the opportunity to work in both fields to a bigger project to a greater extent. And another reason is at the end of the course, I bring in development and commissioning execs, where you will get to pitch those projects. So some you'll be pitching your major project, which will be written to multi-draft at that stage, or you might be pitching your minor, and that has to be at least a solid outline or treatment stage by the pitching event, which is in that last term, in term 4. Now, obviously, the reason for doing the pitching is to get you in front of as many people as we possibly can, to try and open as many doors as we possibly can. We hope that those projects will get picked up. I can't guarantee that they will. I really wish that I could, but we do have a great success from those pitching events, and we've had a good number of those projects picked up, both major and minor, both in film and in television. And in fact, last year, there are still a number of projects that have been requested and are being delivered still, because you don't have to deliver them by the end of December. You deliver them when they're ready, and you probably want to do further drafts once the course is finished. But they will, if they like the work, they like the pitch, they'll request the work. If they like the work, there's a very high possibility that your work may get optioned or commissioned or bought. And one student in particular last year had a very successful year. Both her major and her minor was picked up by Steve McQueen's company. So it does work, and that's what we're aiming to happen. Even if your work isn't picked up, it will of course be disappointing, but you're still getting to meet some really high-end people that have got the ability to buy projects. And if this project isn't right for them, then maybe your next one is. And because you've met them, you've got an open door to a certain extent, where you could go back and say, hi, I met you at LCC, I pitched my project, that project wasn't for you, but I think this one might be. So hopefully it's the starting of a lot of relationships from the people that you'll get to meet. So okay, I will go back to the collaborations on a little bit later. We've got another slide on that. So the facilities at LCC, there are workshops, technology labs, there's obviously a canteen and a cafe, there's a shop, a digital space, gallery space, kit room, library, photographic studio, printing, finishing, etc., etc. So there's lots of things that probably won't be relevant to you, but there are obviously a lot of spaces that will be of interest to you. With regard to the kit room, I thought long and hard for our students to have the ability to take out the cameras, and that's in fact what you can do. So as long as you pass a little course, which is like a little online course to prove that you'll be able to work the cameras, you have the ability to take cameras out, so you can go out and sort of make your own short films, etc., if you so wish. And I had an email just this morning that one of our students, well, two of our students are actually doing just that. One is has written and will be directing, and another student's going to be producing for her, and they're casting that at the moment. So not only can you collaborate with people outside of the course, but you can also collaborate with people on the course with projects that are outside of the course curriculum. So our staff, all of our staff are working, our team are working in the industry in different fields, and we feel that it's very important that you get to meet people that basically do things in different ways. We all do things in very different ways. There's no sort of right or wrong way. There's an industry expectation, and as long as you know what the industry expects from you and you can deliver that, how you get there is your own method. And if you talk to me or you talk to one of my colleagues, we may have very different methods of how we do things. So the more people that you talk to, and you get to learn that, well, okay, I haven't got to do it that way, I can do it my way. It obviously fills you with more confidence that no, there's no one way in and there's no one way of doing it. So going back to the collaboration that I mentioned, the collaboration unit, we have a collaboration with one of our collaborations that you can opt to be part of is with BA Animation, and there's an image on the left of one of the projects that has been produced in the past. So as writers, you will pitch some ideas for some long-running TV animation series ideas, and then from those projects that are pitched, we pick potentially 8. This year we picked 7 and not the 8. We pick the ones that we feel are the strongest and the most original, etc., etc. So those projects are then developed, and they are developed to a high standard, and a pitch doc is made. So the writers will be doing the scripts and the storylines and the series arcs, and the character biogs and all of that, and the animators will obviously be doing the visual interpretation of that with their animation style and their drawings of it. They're obviously, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. Obviously only 7 or 8 are getting picked, and there may be more than that are pitched. I mean, this year I think there were nearly 20 projects that were picked, and as I say, we only picked 7. But if you're lucky and your project is picked, that's great. And then what happens, other writers and other animators will align with you in your project. They will they will ask to become part of your project, and you form a team, and then that project is developed with your team. If your project isn't chosen, obviously again there's a disappointment there, but you have the opportunity to join another team. So for example, you were writing or hoping to write a preschool animation series, and there's another preschool animation series that's picked, you can join that one, and still go through the same experience of developing a project and seeing that grow from concept through to something that's got real potential to be picked up. Again, I bring in development, commissioning execs and animation studios for you to pitch those projects to. We have had a project picked up from that in the past, which is great and is in development. But outside of that, again, you're meeting really high-end industry guests that really know their stuff, and their feedback and advice to you will be gold dust. And even if your project isn't picked up, we are hoping that you will stay together as a team and go on and make it yourself. You'll have animators that have the ability, and the writers have the ability, and together, a lot of animation studios are born out of, people just doing their own things and then it growing into a sort of a company. We've also had people offered work on the back of those pitches. And for example, one of our students was actually offered a role in development in one of the companies that they pitched to, and they're now on their development team. So anything can come from any of these meetings, and they often do. So it's again just creating relationships and as many opportunities as possible. Another collaboration is with MA Film. And again, that's where our students pitch ideas in for a collaboration with MA Film, which is part of their studio unit. So we pitch 10-minute projects that can be shot in one location within the studio, and they pick the strongest from that. They were going to pick 3 this year, with the potential of only 1 unfortunately can get filmed, but they were going to pick 3, but they ended up picking 5 because they couldn't decide. So 5 projects are now currently being developed into 10-minute shorts. 1 of them will get made, which is fantastic, but even the other 4, although obviously again the disappointment they might not get made, the experience of collaboration and the development of that project that can go on and be made afterwards. They can make it themselves, or they can get somebody else to make it at a later stage. But it's all about the experience of collaborating and bringing those projects together. And again, if your project isn't chosen, you have the opportunity to align with some of the projects that are to be a script editor. So you also get a script editor credit if the project is made. So we have a collaboration with the graphic design course, graphic design and media design. This isn't part of the collaboration unit. This is a separate enhancement collaboration towards the end of the course. You will meet up with the graphic design students, you will pitch your projects to them, and they will do a visual representation of your film or your TV series, and they will create a poster. And there's been some amazing work that's come out of that, and those posters will also be shown to the producers who you get to pitch to at the end. So which will be another way of bringing your project to life, but also it gives the graphic design students the opportunity to get work, because sometimes their work is absolutely great, and the industry are making visual representations of their work all the time, and work has come from that. So again, trying to create opportunities. So this is just a still. Obviously we can't show you one of the films, otherwise this presentation will be very long, but this is a still of one of the MA films, short films that was shot. There's also another collaboration at the end of the year with MA Film again. It's not a unit that's marked, but the new students, when they come in, they make short films, and we have the opportunity to pitch ideas in, and they can get picked up and then they get made. And obviously these are all things that can add to your show reel, your portfolio. As I've said, we connect to the industry as much as we possibly can. So here's just a couple of images. On the right is one of the pitching to producer events. And this is at the end of the event when the guests all sort of come back together and they give feedback on how they think the day went. And as you can see in the background, there's some of the posters from that year that were also put up around the room. On the left is an example of Master Club, where you've got an industry guest sitting at a table and just chatting to the students. And as you can see, there's quite a little bit of beverage and food there. So it's an enjoyable evening. So outside of your own writing, and which obviously you're building your portfolio, we also do sort of a little short film towards the end of the course for the grad show. We have a graduation show towards the end of the course where the students' work is put up. Now, obviously, as screenwriters, that means we'll be putting scripts up on the wall, which obviously isn't, you know, it's quite boring, just sort of words and paper on the wall. And obviously we don't necessarily want to put scripts up on the wall because they're all confidential and you want to get them out there and get them made. So we do a little sort of short film. It's normally a two-hander. This particular one that you're looking at was where we set them the task of having 2 characters in 2 different locations via Zoom, which was nice and easy to shoot. And they're having sort of, you know, a conversation. And this is what image from one of those projects, and some great work has come out of that. So this year we're going to be doing 2 people, and they can be in different locations or they can be in the same location. But we sort of give them sort of talking heads subject matter or theme and see what comes out of it, and some great work comes out of it. So, okay, so here's just a really, really short cross section of what some of our students are up to. This is on the feature film side of things, or the major single narratives. So we've got writers working for TV and for film. We've got a writer that's got an OBE for his theatre work. Anna has written some great TV series ideas. Lauren's working on Gangs of London, and she's just literally had a original series it was about to be shot. It's just, all of the episodes have been written. She had a team of writers that joined her on her original project. Tarzan won a BAFTA and the British Television Virgin Awards, and gosh, I think it won about 6 different major awards for Killed by My Debt, which was a single drama. James Dormer is basically writing everything that's action-based. He's currently got a major series in with Disney. I think it's Tales Under, oh gosh, I can't think of the title of it. It's just gone from my head. But it's a major action underwater adventure and multi-million pound budget that's currently being shot. And he showed me the other day some of the moving sets that they've made. It's absolutely amazing. So Jonathan Hall wrote a romantic comedy that did really well, and he's now producing other things, writing and producing. Christine, a romantic comedy Cupcake, but she's also writing on sort of major television shows. Robert Kletcher, Social Suicide, which was an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, a modern take on it. Jez Frieden's comedy Doe did very well as well. Now, this is just a really small section. This is in no way a limit all of the projects. There's way too many to list. But if you follow us on Twitter, or even if you don't have Twitter, you can sort of go onto Twitter and see us at MA Screenwriting. You'll get a cross section of what some of our students are doing, and they're literally doing everything you can think of. And again, it's not a full list. It's the ones that I get to hear about, or I'm watching the television and one of their names will pop up, go, oh, I didn't know that they were writing for that show, etc. So a nice cross section. So again, here's some more films. The Survivalist, which won numerous awards, Deadly Virtues, Outcast, etc. Our writers are not only writing their own original TV, but they're writing for most of, if not all, in fact, of the long-running TV shows. So Emmerdale, Hollyoaks, Doctors, Casualty, EastEnders, anything basic you can think of, our writers are working on. Our writers are also writing in lots of different fields: docudramas, documentaries, theatre, radio, novels, musicals. We've had some musicals come out of the course as well, animation, computer games, etc. Now, obviously, we don't teach writing for books, but the students are taking what they've learnt on the course, you know, great stories, great structure, great characters, great dialogue, and turning that into prose. And obviously that's working very, very well for them. And we've had quite a few that have had sort of a multi-book deals on the back of it. So there is a Postgraduate Hub, and this is a place for you to get support. So as you're transitioning into the MA course, you can get advice, careers advice, employment advice as you're leaving the course. You can get help with CVs, basically any help or support or guidance that you feel that you need. There is a hub there for you to go and get some support. We also have an industry mentoring scheme, and not me personally, but the college, and there's some really high level industry mentors that again can give industry advice as to how to sort of break into the industry and develop yourself as a practitioner. There's LCC Accelerate, and this is where graduates receive, again, support from LCC. It could be funding, it could be access to creative communities, expert support, meeting spaces, office spaces within LCC, and that can be really, really useful. Okay, so I'm doing lots of talking here, so if you've got questions, please write them down. It gives you a chance to have a voice in a moment. So the application. So obviously when you're applying for the course, you need to give us all of your personal details. We expect your English language level to be an overall 7, with a minimum of 6 in each of the 4 skills that they ask you to look at. You'll be asked what your current and your previous education is and give us details of that. Also details of your employment history, your CV, and that will obviously be great to list anything that you've done connected with your career so far, with your chosen field or in a field that is relevant. Obviously, if there isn't anything yet, that's completely fine as well. So you'll be given a writing assignment when you apply. You have to supply 2 pieces of work, and I'll talk about that in a sec. A personal statement and a video task, and that's you have to deliver all of those, because obviously if you submit your application and anything's missing, we obviously can't progress your application, because we have to assess everyone on the exact same content, so everyone has to produce the same thing. So at the moment the college is accepting applicants in sort of there's deadlines. We used to have them on a rolling basis, but now there is a deadline cut off, and then all of the applications come to us, and then we choose to from those applications which ones we want to interview, and then everyone gets told the results at the same time. So the next deadline coming up is the 3rd of April, so that will be sort of on top of us very shortly. So just to talk through what the work samples are, we asked you to deliver sort of a 10-page worth of script. Now that can be a 10-page short in total, and in which case you just submit that. But if you decide to submit 10 pages from a larger piece of work, so perhaps you've written a half-hour narrative, or you've written a feature film and you want to, or a play, and you want to send us just the 10 pages that we're asking for, because we will only read the sort of the 10 pages. So everyone, again, we're reading the same for everyone. We ask that you also include a brief synopsis of the whole project, so it makes sense that in context as to where that 10 pages has come from. You may also want to give us a reason as to why you've chosen that particular section. I mean, it might be you picked the first 10 pages because you think it sets up the world and the characters and everything really well, or you might give us a bit in the middle where you think it's the major confrontation between two characters. Whatever you decide, just sort of give us a little bit of an indication as to why that section and where it sits within the bigger project, the whole project. We also ask that you submit an outline for a second additional project, so it's a different project, and we ask that that's sort of 2 to 4 pages. You know, if it's slightly less than 2 to 4 pages, that's fine, but please don't make it more than 4 pages. We've got the guidelines in there so that everyone is hitting this sort of the same criteria. But again, we want you to be able to tell us what that is. You know, is it an outline for a feature film romantic comedy? Is it an outline for a television series that you're considering developing? And make it really sort of clear who the characters are, what the world is, what the story is within those 2 to 4 pages. Okay. So your personal statement, which you're also requested to do, we want to know just a little bit more about you. So tell us, who you are, why you want to study this particular subject. You know, why do you want to be a screenwriter? What you've done so far to start that career process. It might be that you've been on other courses, short courses. It might be that you've got a certain director or a certain writer that has inspired you. You may have always loved film, or you've always loved television, or you read this book or that book, whatever it is, or you've had some work experience, or you've done another course elsewhere, you know, a BA, for example. Anything that can show us that you are taking this seriously. You've not just sort of woken up yesterday and thought, do you know what, I'm going to be a screenwriter. That you've been thinking about this for a while, you're getting all of your ducks in a row as to, you know, how this is going to happen for you, and you want us to help you on that sort of journey. We have some scholarships and some fundings. Again, this is outside of my remit. There's a separate sort of panel and a separate board that sort of do all of this, and you can sort of go onto the website and see what opportunities are there, re fees and funding. We have a postgraduate scholarship that's $5,000, an international postgraduate scholarship which is up to $30,000, which is great. If you're coming through LCC and you're going from BA to MA, you have a 20% discount. There is also a BAFTA scholarship. Now, it's well worth checking out BAFTA scholarship. We've had 3 of our writers in the past have managed to obtain this, which is wonderful. They have a list of courses that they support, and they only support high-level courses that have got their sort of kite mark tick. We are luckily one of those. It can be worth a lot of money, from £5,000 to £12,000. But what I think is particularly great with the BAFTA scholarship is you get an industry mentor for the year as well. So, so we had John was the first person, and I think that was actually probably the first year that they did the BAFTAs, or maybe the second. And his industry mentor was Sam Bain. Then John got Tony Marchant, and then Theo managed to obtain Matthew Barry. So it's definitely worth checking that out. They have quite early deadlines, so I would say do that sooner than later, because if you miss the deadline, you could miss out obviously on a great opportunity there of support, and financial and industry led. Okay, so we're to the questions page. So obviously if you have any questions on the course, you can drop me an email. If I can answer, I will. If I can't, I can hopefully point you in the right direction. And then here is a page, I'll leave it up for you while we carry on with the questions, that gives you all of the other emails for admission, general inquiries, accommodation, student support, scholarship and fees. And obviously drop them a line if you have any questions. So so that's that for me. I've been talking at you for quite a while, so I will open it up to some of your questions.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for a very comprehensive presentation and just sort of information about the course and graduate progression. We've got a few questions here, so if you do have any others, do jot them down in your questions tab and I will address them to Kelly. So first things first, someone is asking here, what are you looking for in an applicant for the course?
Okay, so what we're looking for is we're looking for passion, really. We're looking for someone who has something to say and they want to sort of hone their voice. They, as I've mentioned, can come from any background, any educational background. We've had builders, we've had single parents, we've had, as I've said, pharmacists, solicitors, deep sea divers, actors, every walk of life you can think of. And I think that always just sort of fills me with my own passion, that it doesn't matter who you are or where you've come from, you've got something to say and we want to hear it. What I think is really important is that a lot of courses will only accept applicants with a degree, with a BA in place. And for certain courses, I can see the worth of that. Personally, I don't agree with that because I think having a BA is wonderful, obviously, but having a BA in marine biology isn't necessarily going to make you a great writer. It will show us that you know how to study and you are committed to, once you're committed to a task, you will see it through. But we do take students that have not got a BA. As long as I can see something in your writing that shows me you have something to say and you want to say it, then we will accept people that haven't got or haven't been through the educational process. So if you haven't got a BA, all is not lost. You can still apply and you still have a chance of getting on the course.
Thank you. Someone is asking here, how many people are on the course and sort of what's the sort of what's the class sizes basically?
What's the class size? Okay, well, it varies every single year depending on how many applicants we have. We've currently got 35 students on the course at the moment, and I presume we'll probably be in that sort of area, in the 30s. To a certain extent, it doesn't matter how many students we have on the course, because when we're all together and we're all sort of on the theory days and we're discussing everything connected to screenwriting, it doesn't matter how many we've got in the room, it just adds to the discussion. What happens is we break down into smaller groups as we go into the workshops, and if we have a bigger cohort, then we would just have more breakout groups, as it were. We've had as little as 12, and we've had, I think 36 is the most that we've had. And as I said, we've got 35 this year. The reason it varies so drastically is I make sure it's really important that the students that are joining us are ready. And if I feel that this particular year we haven't got as many that are ready, then we'll offer less, and if there's more, then we may have slightly more. It's really important that everyone is prepared for what's going to come their way. It is a lot of hard work. You know, there is a lot to be done. Although you're with us 2 days a week, there's sort of at least another 2 or 3 days outside of that with your own work, and obviously the expectations to support your fellow students as well. So you've got to be ready to go, and you've got to have written a few things that we can see that you'll be able to cope with that. I mean, I am a writer myself, and I would hate for anybody to join the course who wasn't ready, who then was going to struggle, because if you struggle, there's a good possibility that you might start to doubt yourself, and you may start to think, I can't do this, I picked the wrong career, why have I done this? When actually all it means is you're not ready to work at this speed, this level of work that's coming your way, and you perhaps needed it to go a little bit slower. But because we're on the course, we've got deadlines, you've got X amount of portfolios that you've projects for your portfolio that you need to develop. We're sort of hurtling down the side of a cliff in sort of one description for it, and we can't stop till we get to the bottom. So just by seeing what you've put in your statement, the work that you've done, your CV showing us that you've written other things, and from conversation from the interview, that will be one of the questions, what else have you written? If I can see that you're not really brand new to this, then you've got a great chance of getting on the course. But if I do feel, having either before or during interview, that it might be a little bit too soon, I've had that conversation with many a student and said, look, I think you might struggle at the moment because you've only written the one thing, although it was great and we loved it, go away, do some more writing, do some more sort of development of your things that you want to write, ideas, etc., and come back. And we've had many students that have come back the year after, some a couple of years after, when they feel that they are then ready and they've got onto the course. So even if you don't make it this year, there's still a conversation to be had to come back and do it a little later when you're ready and you're going to enjoy it more. We don't want it to be a detrimental experience, and if you're playing catch up, it can be. So hard work, yes, but enjoyable, definitely.
Thank you, Kelly. I hope so too. If you do need some clarification, do drop us a line. The next one is asking, are adaptation suitable options as part of the application?
We prefer that it's original, because we obviously haven't read the source material, so we don't know what decisions that you've made. So original we prefer, because I think it says that on the website. It's original ideas, so that we can see what your thought process is, what is engaging you, what is it that you're sharing with us from your own life experience, or your view on life, etc.
Thank you for that. The next question is says, in terms of the 2 to 4 page outline, are you expecting a specific outline, such as paragraph of a story, premise, characters, etc., or bullet points for each scene are acceptable?
No, an outline is a sort of a prose version of your story. So you will do sort of a prose version. There is no right or wrong way of doing an outline. So we haven't got an exact formula. So you can deliver it how you wish or how you feel comfortable. The only sort of real need is to make sure that there's clarity there as to what you're hoping to achieve. It might, obviously you're applying for the course, so we don't expect everything to be, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. There will be, there might be things within the narrative that we think, oh, that's not quite working, but that's expected at this stage. It's your thought process. I'm trying to write a romantic comedy. These are the characters. This is the world. And this is a prose version of the journey of that story. So, if it's TV, for example, if your idea is for TV, you might decide that you want to divide the 2 to 4 pager up, where you give us an overview of the whole series in sort of a section of it, maybe page 1, and then the rest of the document is you give us a breakdown of an episode. Again, it's your call as to what you share with us, but the more you share with us that gives us clarity as to what you're hoping to achieve, obviously the better.
Thank you. Someone is asking here, what is the primary goal of the course? Is it to teach students how to refine their writing, introduce them to industry and get them connecting to industry itself, or is it something else?
No, categorically what you've just said. It's about improving your screenwriting, making you the best screenwriter that you can possibly be, and we're all there for that purpose. Not only the tutors for the students, but the students for the students as well. You will be supporting each other to make each other the best that you can possibly be. So the writing obviously is paramount to help you find out what it is you've got to say, and you might not know at this point, what you care about or what you what it is you want to discuss within your writing. Or shine a light on, or things that make you angry, or things that you feel there's an injustice there, this needs to be exposed. There's something that will excite you, and if it excites you, it will excite someone else, and we're there to help you find that. But also we want to connect you to the industry, so you don't just do a course, learn how to write, and then leave the course and think, now what? I haven't got a clue. What do I do next? I don't know. So we'll give you a game plan. You'll even be setting up your own game plan as part of the industry unit. What is it you're planning to do when you leave the course? And so you're ready to put that plan in action. You'll know exactly what you want to do. And it might be that you just want one particular thing and you're really focused and you know exactly, or you might want to do a number of things. I'm going to go that way, that way, that way, and see where I get a bite first. As I say, there's no right or wrong way into the industry. And if you speak to any of the tutors or any of the guest speakers that come in, every single one of us had a different way in. Some may have won a competition, which I did. I entered a screenwriting competition and I won, and that opened a door for me. Someone else may send work in cold, and that happens. Someone else may have a friend of a friend of a friend. Someone else may have worked in there, as a runner, and then said to someone, I'm a writer too. Can I see? Would you look at my work? There's so many different ways into the industry. And I think the more you know that, it stops you from panicking, because if you think there's only one way in and you're not getting any joy that way, you find another way. So yeah, categorically it's I mean, I know sometimes universities don't like the word vocational, because obviously they can't guarantee that you go and get a job at the end of it. But I like to call the course vocational, that we're giving you every skill set that we possibly can so you can go and get work.
Great, thank you for that comprehensive answer. Absolutely. Someone is asking about the 10-page script written assignment. If submitting pages from a longer piece of work, is it the synopsis and explanations of that chosen section, both of which should be 1 page, or is it 1 per page per point?
Oh, no, just 1 page sort of in general, really. So you'll just do an overview. of the project. So it will be a précis. So, you know, you might give us the first 10 pages, for example, let's just say a romantic comedy. And then within your précis, you might give us a little bit more, you know, Joe met Mary, and Joe works here, Mary works there, they're thrown together, and they, you know, he's trying to do this and she's trying to do that, and they're pulling, you know, against each other in every direction, and X happens and Y happens. So it's just an overview, it's broad strokes of the narrative. We don't want, you know, every single plot point, every detail. It's a synopsis, it's an overview. So we go, right, okay, we get it. This is where Joe met Mary, that's that section. Or this is the section where, you know, Mary tells Peter that she's having an affair, or that she's dying of cancer, you know, or whatever it is. But you've picked that because you think it's a really emotional or emotive moment of the script, and you wanted to show how you wrote that. So the synopsis really, I mean, it doesn't have to be a page. It could be that you can get it across in half of a page. So it's just a brief overview of the narrative, so it makes sense. You know, if you imagine if someone gave you 10 pages of a book and you didn't have a clue what the rest of the book was about, it'd be really hard to engage with that sort of 10 pages because it's out of context. So it's just a brief overview, and then just a little, you know, one-liner even. I picked this section because I felt that it really showed the way, you know, my ability to set up the world, or it really showed my dialogue, you know, or it really showed that I can write great action. You know, why have you picked that section? So you don't need it to be a page long, but if you want it to, that's fine.
Great, thank you. And now someone is asking, would you say it is possible to do the MA Screenwriting course alongside full-time work?
Oh, okay, good question. Yes, but it's hard. Now, obviously, there are some students who have the luxury of being able to do the course and not have any other commitments outside of it, but that's very, very few and far between. The majority of students have to keep a roof over their head, they have to eat, they have, you know, they've got commitments. So yes, you can work alongside it. You just have to be really disciplined and organized. So, you know, life has a way of throwing curveballs. So I always say to students, if you've got work to do, you know, do it as soon as you can. So we're in Thursday, Friday. You know, if you can, obviously, if you're working the weekend, then it's a different matter. But if you're not working the weekend, try to get all of your work done, or as much as you possibly can, at the weekend. Because if you leave it till, you know, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, you know, something's going to happen. Work's going to call you in when you weren't expected to be in. Your child's going to get ill. Something else is going to happen that's going to cause you a problem, and it's just life. It's what happens. So, you know, if you're working full time, you might have to work evenings after you finish work, or if you work in the evenings, you might have to work in the day. So it is doable. I'm not going to lie, it is going to be hard, and certain parts of the course are harder than others. You know, the first term is probably the easiest because you're writing a 10-minute short, and, you know, none of the other units are really kicking in. Term 2 is very difficult because you're juggling so much. Term 3, it lessens down a little bit more because we get rid of one of the units. And then term 4 is major because you're, you know, getting that final project done, and your minor project, and you want it to be the best it can be because you're going to be pitching to the producers, and etc., etc. So that was a very long-winded answer, but yes, it is doable, but you've got to be aware of the workload and the commitments that's required of you, and know that you can juggle both, because, you know, at the end of the day, you're paying a lot of money for the course. You don't want to not be able to give it your all, because obviously that would be a huge waste of money and effort and time. But also you can't, you know, not give your all to your employment. You don't want to lose your job because you're doing a course. So you know, only you can know if you can juggle both. And again, that is a question that I actually ask on the interview. We go through the workload and say, you know, where's that going to fit into your life at the moment? And it might be that it's not the right moment. You know, maybe it's going to be next year. But if you know what's coming your way, and it's my job to make sure people do know that it's going to be hard, there's going to be a lot of work, but it is doable. But organizational skills need to be upped to cope. Time management.
Thank you so much for answering that question. That was the last of them. Thank you so much, Kelly, for spending this evening talking about the course and answering the questions. Thank you all for joining us. Before we part our own ways, Kelly, do you have any last words of wisdom to share with our audience?
No, I just hope to see all of your applications. I hope you're all going to join us. I hope I haven't scared any of you off. I can guarantee that besides the hard work, which I've obviously expressed, it is hard work, we have a lot of fun. You know, we have a lot of laughs on the course, and there's a supportive network that will go into the industry with you basically forever. I mean, I did the course myself many years ago, and I still meet up with students that I did the course with once a month. We show each other our work. You know, you will create a creative network that will be absolute gold dust for you moving forward. Once you've done the course, it doesn't end there. So I think that's it. But any questions, obviously drop me an email. It's a shame I couldn't see any of your faces, but lovely to meet you.
Thank you very much. That's it from us. Once again, thank you all for joining us. As Kelly said, we hope to see your applications roll through, and hopefully for you to start with us, you know, this year or the following year, or whenever you decide to apply. That's it from us. Take care and goodbye.
Bye-bye.